conceptualized some really nice changes in community development in Diamond Head over time, particularly downtown, and but all throughout the community as well, and necessitated some adjustments to the zoning code to reflect the comprehensive plan. So that's the purpose of the zoning code rewrite. The code you have now has served the community well, but Diamond Head is not really positioned to advance quite strongly as a community in many, many ways, and the coding needs to support that. So we began last winter in the December time frame. We scoped the project, I believe, for 10 months, 10, 11 months, something like that. So we're coming down to the time where we produced a draft, and now it's before you. So what I wanted to do is just briefly remind you of the presentation we did last time, which went over how we assessed the code, the ways in which it needed to be aligned to the new comprehensive plan, and in sort of the look and feel of the new code going forward. What I have on the screen is a link that you'll receive tomorrow. I think Pat will send out the link, and it will be a folder with 3 files. And I cannot see you all, so somebody, if you can tell me you can see this screen here with the 3 files.
We can't, Bob. All we see is the top of the window there.
Top of the window. Tell me what the top of the
Just your search bar that says Dropbox. That's pretty much all we can see. Just a little ribbon at the top.
Okay. Let me see if I can stop share, and then I will try to reshare the screen, and I can go about it a different way if this is. Give me just one moment to pull that up. Okay. All right. I'm hopeful you're seeing the entire screen now, and you see 3 files here.
Yes.
Great. All right. So this bottom file, it says zoning code assessment presentation. That's simply a copy of what we presented last time at the last planning commission meeting. For your reference, or if you want to remind yourself of kind of how we approach the process, that file will be there. Secondly is this electronic copy of Envision Diamond Head 2040. This is the adopted comprehensive plan, which was adopted about 2 years ago, actually, as I'm looking at the date. And then finally, we'll have the draft code itself. And let me just make a couple of comments about that. I'm hopeful that you're seeing the code on the screen.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So this will be the draft code. It's dated today. Commissioners, you can download this, or you can leave it online, whichever you prefer. When you open the code up, there'll be some notes. You'll see here review guidance and notes for review. It'll just kind of give you an idea as you're looking over the code and reviewing it from your perspective, maybe some things that you want to look for. So there's some notes there. Then you will see after that the contents of the code, reorganized, reformatted, and then the regulatory comments adjusted. And I want to hit just about 3 highlights on this as we go down through the code. So the current code has 18 or 19 articles. They've been reduced and consolidated and reorganized so that there are 10 now, 10 articles, and they're placed in a more organized format. The presentation of the code is hopefully more attractive, more visually attractive, and more user-friendly in the way it's presented. One of the key, as I'm scrolling down here, one of the key elements that we concentrated on was in the way the zoning districts are presented. so that it's not just a series of texts that a community member or a person doing business in Diamond Head can access this much more easily and understand what the code is driving at, what the zones are intended to produce. I'll also remind the commission that you've already adopted, but we have updated it to some degree, the Town Center Aloha District, which is the town center. It's a form-based component of the code, and you'll see a section of the zoning map addressing the town center Aloha District with the various building types associated with it and how the downtown is intended to develop over time, from either from a mixed-use point of view or from some of the conventional commercial. One other highlight, I'm scrolling quickly down to the table of uses. It'll be in Article 4, and as we go to Article 4, you had in your old code, or I should say your current code, you had a use table that had 200 and a lot, it was 260 or some odd uses. These have been consolidated and they have been reorganized in a way that is much more meaningful and useful in our opinion, updated as well, and you'll see a difference in the use table here. Also, we changed the use, or proposing to change the uses from simply permitted and conditional uses with use conditions. So those two categories rather than the three categories you had before. When there are substantive changes in a chapter, they are marked. Either there'll be a little notation in the front here where they're annotated. They're either struck out, insertions are underlined in red, and then any proposed action is in red. So you'll get a sense of the changes there. Now that does not include the table of uses. We simply have consolidated that and simplified that table. Now there's 150 uses on that table. And the way, one of the major consolidations was in terms of retail uses, because the current code has antique shops and this kind of shop and that kind of shop and the other kind of shop, all of which can be consolidated under the category of retail. And so that idea we carried through the code. There you'll see some, the fence, you recently enacted a fence amendment, so that's inserted in this code. And then the last, I think the last highlight I want to just touch on are the design standards. This will be Article 5. So you have some design standards in the current code. This is expanded, and this gets at better site and building design in the city of Diamond Head, and it's presented by zone. You'll see across the top, and then the particular kind of standard down the left-hand side. So where there are existing design standards, you will see them in blue. So this is what you have now. You have a lighting standard in the current code. So that's your existing standard in blue. We're suggesting it be retained, but that also be expanded into other kinds of lighting standards associated with that. That flows down through the design of buildings. Here are some existing standards you have. We're suggesting they be eliminated because they're either vague or duplicative, or we can restate them in a better way. So you'll see that in Article 5. And then the remainder of the code, I will touch on this. Parking, we have reduced parking ratios so that we can have adequate parking but not too much parking. And that has to do with reducing parking ratios. After we move forward from there, we will get into the environmental provisions. You're working on a new tree ordinance. So the existing tree ordinance is here now, but we'll replace that with the new ordinance when that matter is settled in the code. And then sections 8 and 9 have to do with the administration of the code. So I went a little longer than I wanted to on that, but I'm orienting you to what we're calling the staff and planning commission markup draft. If you want to download if obviously you're going to take various levels of review of it. You don't have to be a technical master of this code. We often advise communities, if you are content and happy with your comprehensive plan, the code is intended to implement it. So that's what it's doing. But by all means, review it to the degree that you are comfortable with, and it can be downloaded as a PDF and commented on, or you can comment on it right in your Dropbox link. You'll see over here, you can make a comment, and you can post it in the document right on the sidebar over here, and that's an easy way to collect those. We would just ask if, when you do have a comment, by the way, incorporating low impact design, that's what this red text is here. When you are commenting, if you'll be sure to reference the number and the page so that we can pretty easily get it at where you are. Or if you want to do it the conventional way and mark it up with a red pen on a piece of paper, we're totally good with that. We will work with you however you feel most comfortable reviewing the document. Commissioners, that's all I have. I know that's a fly-through, but the point here is you'll get the link with those 3 files, and this will be your draft Planning Commission review copy. The plan is, and we may want to discuss this a moment, the plan is to offer a period of time for the Planning Commission to review. And Pat, help me with the date. I believe we were going to target a September public hearing. You have to have a public hearing before any adoption of the new code.
Correct.
So September the 28th, I believe.
26th.
26th. You'll have to remind me of the date. Was a target date for that if the commission is ready to proceed. So, Madam Chair, that's my comments for you. Any questions on that? I can go into more detail, but I don't want to overstay my welcome.
Okay. Thank you for all your work, Mr. Barber. We appreciate it, and we'll look forward to looking at those links that Pat will send out tomorrow morning for all of us.
Great.
Okay.
Any other questions for me at this point? Pat, did I cover everything that we needed from your point of view?
You did an excellent job, as always, Bob. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank y'all so much. You'll have that available to you in the morning. And we'll look forward to taking the next steps.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good meeting.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
Thanks,
Have
Bob.
a good night. Okay.
If I may,
Yes, sir.
to tell you about this next 30 days is for y'all to familiarize yourself, become comfortable with it and all. And then we will advertise and hold a public meeting in our September meeting, the public hearing in our September meeting on the 26th. All right. So this document will be available for the public to see prior to that meeting date. So they need to look at it too if the public desires to comment on it and make any changes. We'll hold the public hearing, listen to what the residents have to say, listen to what suggestions y'all have to say. We'll do whatever revisions need to take place to the document, and then in our October meeting, we will then have it up for a vote. And then by November the 7th, if all goes according to plan, we'll have it in front of the council. So that's just to give you a timeline of what we're looking at.
Okay, so by January, if all goes well,
Yes,
we will have a new code
yes,
book.
yes,
Perfect.
correct.
Okay, thank you so much, Pat.
You're welcome.
All right. Unfinished business, item number 4, the City of Diamond Head is proposing a text amendment to the tree ordinance, Article 11, general requirements and restrictions. The proposed text amendment is to increase the preservation of existing trees. The case file number is 202300337. Okay. As we do not have anyone in the audience tonight, Mr. Rich, would you like to tell us how we got here, or we know how we got here?
Well, I think everybody's familiar with how we got here, and where we
Okay.
left it last time was that the commission had made some suggestions as to changes that y'all wanted to see in this document. And now we have made those suggestions, changes, and have included them in red here to the document. And I think we have, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, I think we've got everything taken care of. There was one item that you had mentioned today, I believe, that you were concerned about.
Yeah, everything looked great. Y'all was right on, but I was just wondering why the American holly was taken off the protective list. Because I didn't think we discussed taking it off, and that was the only thing.
And I have no problem with putting it back on. No problem
Does
whatsoever.
anybody have a problem putting the American holly back on?
I mean, they are beautiful bushes, and we're talking about 12 inches, so we're talking about a substantial tree there, or
Right,
bush.
Right.
Okay.
I have a big one in my backyard. It's
Yeah.
probably about 30 foot tall.
Yeah, so if everybody's okay with that, we'll include that back into the heritage trees there. Okay?
Okay. Yes.
I have a quick question. 'Cause
Okay.
I didn't read it fast enough, I'm very sorry. So, who is providing the arborist?
Speak into the microphone.
Who is providing the arborist? Is that on the city or is that on the building?
Okay, the arborist for an undeveloped piece of property, that would be a major development, 5 acres or more. Okay, that would be the developer that would provide the arborist to come in and give the tree canopy, the sizes, et cetera, which ones would be removed, any mitigation, that type of stuff. That would be submitted by, and that would be, and what we're recommended, that person be an ISA certified arborist. Okay? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, so are we going to be able to have 3 that they choose from that I know they're responsible for that, but how do we know that that person is not like in their pocket? Like, how do we not know?
So one of the things we did last time was the recommendation is we're not just limiting it to the ISA certified arborist, but also a Mississippi licensed tree surgeon and a licensed horticulturalist. So just like now when somebody's got an engineer or an architect or a contractor, they've got to be licensed. So if they're licensed, we take that and we run with it. Now, that doesn't mean we don't check it. So there's nothing in here that requires, for example, if you've got your ISA certified person and they say, here's my plan, and I've cut down every tree on the lot, and I say this is fine. Well, that's going to raise a bunch of red flags, and we will have the ability, just like now when an engineer comes in and says, hey, here's my plan, or here's my land development plan, and we go, well, you drew it on a napkin, so we're going to get the city engineer to look at it. We will not have a dedicated arborist, but we will also be able to go out and say, hey, we want someone that is either an ISA certified arborist or licensed tree surgeon or horticulturalist to look at your plan and just make sure, because it either does or doesn't look right to us. So we've stayed away from us having an approved list because we don't have approved lists of contractors. We don't have approved lists of engineers, architects. One of the reasons we don't is it almost gives us like we're recommending them, which we don't want to get in that business. And the other reason is we don't really have, we're trying to, while we're trying to kind of make this where the punishments are stronger and we've got more teeth to it, we're also trying to not overly complicate it. So if we were to have a system where we've got licensed people within the city, and remember, tree arborists are not licensed in the state. So, you know, the ISA is not a state license, it's a nationwide. So, you know, we don't want to get into this. We'd have to almost create a whole nother procedure or another 4 or 5 pages to this ordinance of how we license or select people. So again, we're trying to not overcomplicate it. If you've got somebody that's licensed, you know, that's a requirement. But after that, we will be looking and we will be checking it, and there's nothing that prevents us from getting someone else to say, hey, I need another opinion on this. So that's kind of where that's kind of on from the legal perspective and from really just a practical enforcement perspective, we've kind of come down on that issue. Go ahead.
Is there a way to, kind of along the lines of what you were saying, is there a way that we can fund the arborists through their permitting fees, and we have the list of arborists at the city, instead of them going and finding their own arborists? Is there a way we can do that?
Well, for example, we've got, I mean, like I said, if we're gonna make a list, the first thing I would suggest is go to the ISA and say, if you're an ISA certified person, which we've done. We've said, hey, if you're ISA certified, that's a list. Just like if, you know, if you're a licensed attorney, there's some board, there's some agency that you have to uphold their standards. Engineers, architects, contractors as well. If we could supply the list of all the ISA certified arborists,
is there a
to
way
folks.
to make? Is there a way to assign them like a pool of arborists who they're going to use? And
We have, by saying it has to be an ISA certified arborist. They are the, since we do not have that designation, arborist license, okay? We've got a tree surgeon
right.
and we've got a horticulturist, landscaping horticulture. Good man. So we have those two things there, but those are not arborist positions.
Right.
So
I think
Now, if you-
Actually, on that pamphlet handout that y'all gave us, there was a list of different
Yeah,
tree
there's
tags,
like-
arborists and all that
there was
on
like
there.
16 of them on the coast, I believe, ISA
Right.
certified arborist.
Right. But
Yeah.
there's no mechanism that we're recommending that the city put in place to even further cull from that list or make recommendations. I mean, there's however many there are on the coast. If you want to get an ISA certified person or a licensed horticulturalist, the burden's on the developer to do it and the developer to pay for it too. What we've got in place right now is we have our tree guy go out and take a look and do a tree survey, and we charge, like, I think it's $100 is what he charges us. It's right currently, is it still Eric Nolan or?
Yeah.
And so that's the way we currently do it. I mean, we could keep doing it that way, where we've got somebody that we just say, hey, this is our contract tree guy. He's going to do all of them. We've just kind of, we modeled this after what Oxford was doing, and we would be the first city on the coast that I'm aware of that would have this requirement of an ISA certified arborist. But I mean, we can.
so. How will it be checked?
Okay.
What would be the process?
Here's how I envision it happening.
Okay.
Very similar to what we do with our subdivision regulations when you're doing a new subdivision in the city, okay? So, you file your plans, you have an engineer draw them up, et cetera, submit it to us. Well, if we don't have the expertise or the time, we farm that out to a consultant engineer to see if the zoning, and right now, Covington Engineering is under contract as our city engineer. They look at it from a zoning standpoint, the subdivision regulations, et cetera, drainage and all that from an engineering standpoint. And then they provide feedback to the developer saying, you need to change this, we need to look at this, need further documentation, whatever. All right, so once that is settled, then you get into the development process. There's an engineer on hand, I won't say every day, but when the major things are going on, and that engineer provides documentation and monthly reports to our department for us to review, or our consultant engineer to review, to make sure that they are adhering to what we ask them to. And that goes on throughout the development phase until we accept the development in the final plat. I envision the same thing happening here, that they have an ISA certified arborist, submits a plan, we then submit that plan to a consulting arborist, ISA certified consulting arborist, and then they provide us feedback, changes, etc. Also, that ISA certified arborist hired, paid for by the developer, would have to stay with the contract, with the development, until it is completed and we accept final plat. That yes, they did implement the plan.
They protected the trees.
They protected the trees. That's a big deal, is making sure they've got the protection around the trees, the drip line and that. I see that working in the same way,
Okay.
okay? Again, that would be paid for by the arborist, but the consulting arborist would be paid for by the city through the fees that we collect.
So it's really a good analogy. That's how it would work, kind of, you know, as engineering works, is it's their plan. I mean, we're not going to make plans for folks. We're not going to go out and mark trees for folks, but we will be checking and we will be engaging, just like we engage our engineer. We'll be engaging, whether it continues to be Eric Nolan or somebody else, and it could be people that we rotate internally. But if it's an interior lot and it's cutting down one tree, you know, building officials can look at that and go, yeah, that's a pine tree. It's exempt. If it's a major development and, you know, we're looking at sketch plat and you know, final plat and all that, they will have their arborist on staff, and we will have the folks that we look at or work with for the city checking it and making sure. And go ahead.
That's an excellent point. There are several stages of approval that a development must go through. First is the sketch plat, and that's approved by y'all, okay? And then we have the preliminary plat, and that's approved by administration. And then we go to final plat, and that's approved by city council. The ISA certified arborist would be involved in that throughout the entire process, just as we do the engineers, etc. So we're using the ISA as the people that say, yes, these are qualified people. Just like if a guy's got an engineering staff or attorney's got his license, etc.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you're saying major development, so what constitutes major development? Like, do you consider 3 houses being built at one time a major development?
Yeah.
Oh,
All at one
absolutely, yeah. I mean, you know,
Okay.
and you,
So when they clear all that and take all the trees down at one time, is that considered major development?
sure.
If it's 3 lots.
In the
at
city
one-
of Diamond Head,
yes.
absolutely it is.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so who
sure.
marked those trees?
Okay. Wait a minute. It's not,
Who was in charge of that?
okay.
So I think the better question is, who would be?
Who would be in charge of
Who
charge
would
of-
be in charge of
yes.
that? Okay.
Who would have been in charge of that?
They-
Could you
they-
explain to me that
Okay.
process?
You have to understand, what's going on today is under current environment,
Okay,
all right?
Yeah.
And we're talking about future environment. So do you want to say, what would, if they,
so right
what
now
would
we're
happen in the
still
future?
Okay, gotcha.
All right, ISA certified arborist, tree canopy, identification, size, what you're keeping, what you're taking away, what you, protection measures you're taking place,
Gotcha.
mitigation, all those phases that we're talking about here would be covered by that. And if we felt that that was something that we really don't have the knowledge base, et cetera, then we would bring in a consulting arborist to take care of that for us, to act in that role as a check and balance.
So we're really hoping that this can work in conjunction with the fill policy, the stormwater ordinance, the subdivision regulations on, when we're developing multiple lots, that type of thing. And then, we're hoping that this will work hand in hand with that. And then what we did after the last meeting is some of the changes that we made is on developed lots, so there's already a house on it and somebody wants to get a pine tree out because it's a hazardous tree or the insurance company wants it removed. We've exempted those. So, we're trying to strike a balance here so that we don't have the situation where we've got a clear cutting of multiple acres like we've seen. But we're not putting a burden on residents or the staff. Hey, I've got a pine tree in my backyard and the insurance company wants it out and I gotta go get an arborist or do this or do that. No, in that case, if you've got a letter from your insurance company or, it's on a developed lot, you're good. So it's that balance that we're trying to strike there.
Keep going.
I'm looking at 11.11.2. Any requests for permit approval with it, like if they, prior removal of significant specimen or heritage trees. I think this is just a little bit too, like, lenient. We just need to be a little bit more strict and not even have that option. What do y'all think?
From a legal perspective, essentially, we're giving you a 24-month moratorium on developing if you violate, if you clear without a permit or
Right.
But I think what we've got to do, that it's more harsh than we've ever done. I think, so we're putting folks in jail. We've got to give them an option to get out of jail. And the option to get out of jail is reforest. So it's not just, hey, you now come up with a plan. There's more of a burden. One, you've got to pay all the fines that you've had to pay, or the fees that you've had to pay. In addition, now you've got to come up with a plan that results in a future coverage of 40% of the site. That's more than what would be required of a regular site. So if you can't do that, you won't do that, or you don't want to do it, well, then just sit out for 24 months. But we also don't want to, we've seen some of those lots in town where there was a cleared lot and now it is sitting because we've got a stop work order on it. And we've got to give some incentive, in my opinion, to let people out of jail. If you do this, because we don't want lots that are just sitting there with a bunch of topsoil on them, just looking terrible and eroding all over the place. We've had a situation again where we've got a property. Is it off Turnberry, where we've got a stop work order on him, but the property's just sitting there. He's okay with he hadn't figured out a solution yet, and we've got a stop work order, and it looks terrible still, and it's just sitting there. So at some point, we've got to come up with a way, in my opinion, it's my recommendation.
So is that like a case by case, or that's just
Mm-hmm.
does that have to be approved? Who has to okay that? Because our reason is, right, we don't want a developer coming in and going, whoopsies.
Oh, no,
all we
I
got to
agree.
do is,
Yeah.
let's go ask for forgiveness. We want to let them know that there are harsh penalties.
Yep.
Not, oopsies, you can,
2 years
Go-
is pretty harsh, I think.
right, but there's a way, right, but.
Well, there's a way out, but
There's a
again,
way
it's a
out.
tougher, you've got to go above and beyond to get out.
Okay,
Right.
40%.
Yes,
Those are lots that he doesn't get to recoup any money on.
right.
So that makes his plan a less revenue, that's a pretty hefty. Thinking of it from a developer's perspective.
So you're going to lose
So if
lots.
you've got 10 lots, then you've got to
You-
reforest 4 of those.
Yes.
That's correct.
And
You're
where would
essentially
they-
losing-
And not build on them.
And not build on them.
Right.
Okay.
Very
Yeah.
good, yeah.
Yeah.
So-
In
So
addition
is
to the
that-
fees and,
Is that
go ahead,
what-
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to read it again.
Okay.
And again, it may, however, be considered. So again, there's nothing that requires us, they're gonna have to come with it, and again, just like in the process for, if they've got an arborist that comes up with their original plan, we're sending it to our guys that, that are working for the city, that are gonna say, yes, this is a good plan, or yes, I agree with their designation of what is a heritage tree and what is not. Same thing here. This will definitely be going to our arborist if they come up with a plan, because we're not gonna, what's 40% of the site, blah, blah, hey, we're gonna be giving it to our guy. Check this. Is this right? Does this make us whole? Does this do what we want it to do? If it doesn't, they sit out for 24 months.
So where does the reforestation happen?
On site.
On the
On
development,
the same property?
On site.
right,
Exact same property?
On site.
Yes.
It's,
Okay.
it's
Like-
reforestation.
Well, so if the developer owns 10 lots
Mm-hmm.
and they oopsie and cut down all the trees, then 4 of those lots on that development are now reforested unless they want to sit out for 2 years.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way, that's a good way of describing it.
Okay.
And so there's still a punishment there.
So 2 years is gonna cost him money. Not being able to develop those 4 lots is gonna cost him money.
Well, and I
Well,
think,
if he clears off 100 acres, he's
That's
gotta
40.
reforest 40 acres.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and I think, like Pat and Derek have both said, we want to strike a balance of, we have some stiff penalties, but we also don't want to discourage developers from coming to Diamond Head. If we make it so strict and so tough, then no one's going to want to build here.
And I think the balance really in this instance is striking a balance of somebody sitting on the sidelines for 2 years with a lot that just looks terrible and they walk away and we've got to look at it for 2 years versus them actually doing something to get it rehabbed quickly so that we can mitigate the loss. The thing that we've talked about, and I've said it many, many times, is we're not gonna stop trees from getting cut down. We're just like we don't stop speeders. There's going to be violations. The goal here is to, we've enhanced the punishment side so that when there is a violation, we've mitigated. The other side of this, as the monkey, the white elephant in the room and the monkey on our backs, obviously, is the enforcement side, and we're gonna have the tough conversation with council about getting that department more help, so that they can get better on the enforcement side. Because quite frankly, one of our ways of enforcement right now is residents driving by and calling City Hall. So that's going to be where the rubber meets the road. We could make this as strong as y'all want it, but it's going to fail if it's on the enforcement side. We just don't have the manpower to be looking at it. And so we're going to be, in my opinion, we're going to be the city on the coast that enforces tree preservation and protection as strong as anybody. But again, we've got to have, on the backside, we got to have that enforcement. But this is the first step. If we don't have it in place, so this is step 1 of 2.
Something I found out earlier today, there are 2 cities on the coast right now that are revamping their tree ordinances to require ISA certified for developments, major developments, not individual lots, but major developments. So they're moving in that direction now. So I think we're going to see others move in that direction. I'd forgotten that earlier.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Okay, if not, can we have a motion for a recommendation for city council? A motion to accept as it's written, any changes we may want to make?
I make a motion with the one change with the American Holly to send to the city council for recommendation for approval of this plan.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, if not, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay.
Any
Motion passes.
Any abstentions?
Yes. Any abstains?
So
Okay,
that
motion
will,
passes.
so there's no council meeting next week. The week after, this will, with that one amendment that Mr. Bennett suggested, we will re-add American Holly. This will be the recommendation to the city council.
Okay. All right,
What
moving.
did you, I'm sorry, did you say not next week?
The week after.
The week
after.
Yeah,
Correct.
the first Tuesday of the month.
Okay. So any open?
Excuse me.
Oh, yes.
Oh, it is the first Tuesday, because the
First
4th
and-
is, okay.
First and
5th.
third, okay.
Yes,
It says the 5th right here.
okay.
Okay. So, any open public comments for non-agenda items? We do not have anyone in attendance.
That's correct.
So we will move on from there. Any comments from the commissioners? Okay. Communications and announcements. The next city council meeting is Tuesday, September the 5th, 2023. The next planning commission meeting is Tuesday, September 26th, 2023. Mr. Rich, do we
Yes,
have
ma'am.
anything on the agenda for
Boy,
the
do we.
26th?
Do we? All right. I hope you enjoyed your vacation, okay? All right. We have 2 variances, 1 conditional use request, 1 rezone. We have 3 public hearings. Those 3 are the code rewrite, the subdivision regulations changes that we're working on also, and the Aloha District rezoning.
So bring dinner.
Domino's?
Bring beverages.
Okay,
You might want to bring a blanket and a pillow, maybe?
okay,
No 2 commissioners won't be there for that. I don't know if
okay.
Uh-oh,
I'll be in the happiest place in the world.
just maybe?
Las Vegas? Sorry.
Can we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay.